to our antenatal class, and today we're going to continue our discussion about breastfeeding. It is such an important topic to always cover and to make sure that people really understand the fantastic benefit of breastfeeding, and also that it's doable once you go back to work. In my kind of work, I see a lot of people stressing about breastfeeding also when they go back to work, and every person's situation is different. And it's just always important that people know that it does not mean that it's the end of the road when they go back to work. A lot of people have the impression that once you start working again, that you have to wean your baby and that is finished. And that is definitely untrue. One can continue to breastfeed quite successfully for an extended time, even though you might be separated from your baby. So the question now is, how exactly do you do this? How do you get it right to be able to work and to breastfeed? Now, I have to point out here that we are all different. We all have different kinds of jobs, and that also makes a difference as to what exactly, the plan as to how exactly to get it right. So for some moms, you might be working from home, so your baby is with you at home, or you might be working away from home, your baby still comes with you. It is a very different situation compared to a mom going back to work and she's leaving her baby, away from her, so either at home, looked after, or perhaps at a daycare. It is also different compared to a mom, for example, working from home. So that is why you have to look at your specific situation. But for the purpose of this class today, we are going to look at just the broader kind of way of how to actually get it right, and know that it is definitely possible to continue to breastfeed. Now, there are two ways of this, of two different branches that we need to cover today. The first one is if you are not working currently, so you are planning on going back to work, so you are currently with your baby. And the second one is how to get it right once you already are back at work, or it is your first day back at work, how to actually do this. So if one thinks, if you are pregnant or you already have your baby, but you are currently at home and thinking about going back to work, it causes great anxiety. Nobody can really always look after your baby like you can. The best thing that you can do is to know that you're providing the best possible food for your baby, to give your baby breast milk when you are not there. And now how to actually do this. So if you are planning on going back to work, usually a month before you go back, that is the ideal time to really look at your situation. So if you have a small newborn baby, this is not the time to start expressing and storing breast milk and all of that. This is more the time to really get things going, to stimulate with breastfeeding, and to just really work on the supply. But if it's about a month or so before you actually go back to work, that is the ideal time to really start to prepare for breastfeeding at the workplace. And one of the things that is quite important is to build up a supply of breast milk in the freezer. And this is the reason for this is then you know for a fact there's more milk available. So should your baby suddenly vomit when the caregiver is giving your breast milk to the baby, or the baby might be in a growth spurt and needs more milk at that time, for whatever reason you need to give some more, is always beneficial to know there is milk available that is in the freezer, and it's easily available to just take it out and give it to your baby. So the best thing, like I said before, about a month before, that is the time you start expressing. And remember that your breast pump is never your baby, and this is really important to understand. I find a lot of moms express with the breast pump for the first couple of times, and then realize that it seems like you have about no breast milk because it seems very little is coming out. And remember that for your body, the breast pump is suddenly like an extra baby. It's like a second baby, and because your body has really it's been stimulated for one baby. So if you add something, if you add the breast pump, it is a new baby for your body. And that is why you cannot go according to what is in the, what you can express, because that is not the amount of milk that you actually make. Remember that you also just fed your baby. So this is just an extra milk that you can actually express at this time. You have to basically start and express every day. You have to basically stimulate the breast so that it's an ongoing thing that happens. Once you start expressing, usually around about the same time, you have to do this every day. And over time, your body actually does react to that extra stimulation. And you will find that you will have more breast milk that you can actually express. So do not worry about the amount of breast milk that you are expressing. Another question one often gets is, with what do I express my breast milk? And this is also something that one needs to look at your situation. For a mom who is with her baby, working with her baby, you might not even need a breast pump. But for a mom who is away for an extended couple of hours every day, for that mom, it might be a good idea to actually have a breast pump that you can express. There are so many different ones on the market, so I'm not going to go into the different kinds. It might be a good option to look at your situation and then possibly finding your lactation consultant in your area if you have certain specific questions to go over your situation and how to get it right with you. So if you express every day on a certain time in the mornings, most people find that if you express in the mornings, you will get much more milk out compared to expressing in the afternoon. It's just a hormonal thing that usually in the mornings it's easier. So you can, for example, feed your baby on the one side and then express on the other side. Some moms find you could even express both, at the same time when baby's feeding. So you feed on the one side and then you have the breast pump on the other. And that also works quite well, because then you're working with the hormones that are currently produced while your baby is feeding. You have some practical tips that one can do. You get all sorts of underwear, bras that you can use that actually just supports the breast pump if you're using that. But you can easily make it yourself with a boob tube that you can just cut a hole in, or an old bra perhaps that you can just cut a hole in to support the breast pump while you are basically breastfeeding and you are expressing at the same time. You might even feed your baby on both breasts and then afterwards express with the breast pump. It is important to remember again that do not stress if you express after the feed and you find very little comes out. It is quite normal. It is something that you keep on doing every day, and over time you will start noticing there will be more and more breast milk that you can actually express. Okay, so then what to do now with this breast pump? So with this breast milk, you've now expressed the milk, and now how do you actually store this? Now again, if you go to the shops, there are so many different options available, from all sorts of little bags, for freezer bags, for freezing breast milk, to little containers. And it really is whatever's available, at your place that might be useful for you. Another thing that is quite easy to do is to just have a container, or actually an ice cube tray that you wash and it's clean, and then you express the milk into a bottle. You put that milk in the fridge and it cools down. And that is important to always remember. Always cool the milk before you actually freeze it. It just makes it that it's easier, that it looks perhaps better to you, because what often happens if you freeze it directly from being warm body temperature, it might actually be almost like a soapy look when you defrost it, but which is quite normal and it's quite fine for the baby to drink it. But I find a lot of moms stress about that. So remember then to cool the milk first. Once it's cold, you take your ice cube container and you put the milk in the ice cube container. You freeze that it's solid. And once you've got solid breast milk, then you can just break it out of the container and put it in any kind of freezer bag or any kind of container. And then what happens, you've got these little blocks, and you can measure, for example, let's say it's 20 mils, and you can remove the amount of blocks that you need, the amount of volume that you need, and that seems to actually work quite well. Remember that if you have frozen breast milk, so if you have a lot of, a big volume of milk, and you only use and you defrost it, or you can't refreeze it. So that is why sometimes it's better to rather freeze it in smaller quantities compared to a bigger quantity. It's liquid gold, and one is just always quite sad to the fact that if you have to throw away quite a lot of milk that you haven't used. So rather use it in smaller quantities, and you can just use a little bit, and you can always just add if you need some more. Okay, so now you've got the frozen milk that you have in the freezer. And remember, also another tip is to actually write down the date of the expression, that you can know exactly how old is this milk that is in the freezer. Otherwise, your whole freezer later on is filled with little bags of milk, and nobody has a clue as to how old is this milk. So it's better to just rather write down the date, that you can actually see when was this expressed, so that you can know how old the milk is. Another question often is, so how long can I store the breast milk for? And that is also important to know the information. So if you have a box freezer, or these newer freezers where it says minus 18 degrees, that is the ideal, because it is a very cold freezer, that you can store the breast milk then for 6 to 12 months. So it's quite a long time that you can actually keep it frozen. Just again, remember, you do not want it to actually thaw, and for whatever reason, because you cannot refreeze it. So rather make sure that it stays frozen, okay, and only take it out when you need it. So how then to defrost? If you've now have this milk in the freezer and you want to remove some of it to actually use for your baby, how to go about with defrosting the milk. And the ideal is to just take it out. If you've got time, if for example, you're going to use a little bit tomorrow, you might tonight take it out, put it in the fridge at the top, just put it in the fridge, and then over the next couple of hours, it's going to defrost in the fridge, okay, in a cooler temperature. If you are in a hurry, then obviously that is not going to work. So then it's better to rather take it out, put it in a little container, and then the container you can put on in a different container with warm water. That will warm the actual container that your breast milk is in, and then you will defrost that milk. Never ever fall into the trap of putting the milk in the microwave, and do not put it on the stove. Remember, that is all living cells. Breast milk is all living. It has all fantastic properties. And if you think about putting it in the microwave, you are actually killing a lot of those good things. So do not put it in the microwave. Even if it's frozen, most of the properties still exist and still are present and very much alive. So you are still giving liquid gold to that baby, even though it was frozen perhaps for quite a couple of months. It's still really good for your baby. Do not put it in the microwave to defreeze it. Okay, so then what to do then if you go back to work? So normally you would think in your situation as to where is it the best possible place for you that might be private, that you can actually express. So again, we have all different places. Some moms are more in the car, and you can even express in the car. I have seen moms even expressing while driving, again, you've got some sort of underwear that's needed to be able to support the breast pump. Or you can do that in an office, that you can just close the door and it's private. Whatever your situation is, just to know the last place you want to actually express is in the bathroom. That is not a good place to express and to feel relaxed. It's best to have something of the baby there. You might even consider taking your phone, and then also on the phone you can look at your baby's pictures and even like a video on the baby. We know that if you're thinking about the baby, your hormones work better, so then it's easier to just express at the time when you are thinking about your baby. It's very stressful for moms to go back, especially on the first day. And it's important also here to think, okay, now what can you do to support your body with going back to work? And there again, it would be how much are you taking your vitamins? Are you eating healthy? All these kinds of things are important to look after yourself. Okay. Then, depending on how long you are away from your baby, the most common pattern for going back to work is that just before you leave, you would breastfeed your baby in the morning, and then you go to work, and then you would express the times that your baby normally feeds. So let's say your baby would normally feed 3 or 4 hours later after you fed your baby. That is then the time that you would need to express at work. And then that milk that you've been expressing, you can then keep in a cold place. So if you've got a fridge, you can just keep it in the fridge. If you don't have a fridge, you can keep it in a little cool box with ice packs, and that is safe to keep that there. And you can then take that milk home tonight or this afternoon, and then just put it in the fridge. Breast milk that is expressed that you put in the fridge can be there anything between 3 and 8 days. So it's quite safe to keep your breast milk in the fridge. You don't always have to freeze it straight away, especially if you know you're going to use it within the next day or two. Okay, so then you rather just keep it in the fridge until you're going to use it. Okay, normally the milk that you express at a specific time when your baby normally would feed, that is in most cases exactly the amount that you will actually be able to express. Okay, so it is usually enough milk to have, that you can actually give to the caregiver. If for whatever reason the baby needs more milk, so if it's the vomiting that happened, or if it is that the baby's in a growth spurt, or for whatever reason, at least then you know that there is frozen breast milk in the freezer, and that can just be taken, out and prepared for the baby. Again, here it's just really important to have a good talk with your caregiver so that that person really also understands all the ins and outs about breastfeeding and the handling thereof. And again, this is something that your lactation consultant can help you with in your area to really prepare everybody for going back to work. So when you are back at work and you are expressing in the daytime, normally when baby would be feeding, like I said, that is usually enough for the following time. Some moms perhaps are working close, from home, and then perhaps at lunchtime can go back home, and then they can just breastfeed baby again. Other times it's not the case, so it depends on your workplace and where you actually do work. It is really important to always remember you can continue to breastfeed. Going back to work is not the end of the line for breastfeeding. You can successfully breastfeed for quite some time later. We know that even when a baby is starting to eat solids, and that is usually within the first, let's say, somewhere in the middle of the first year, somewhere around 6 months. And if you are going back to work, then it becomes even easier because it's not just the breast milk that the baby's getting. Your baby's also starting to eat solids, and then together with the breast milk. So it does become easier. If you are going back to work and your baby's 4 months old, don't worry, you will get it right. It will be something that becomes quite easy just go into the habit of going back to work. And then once baby starts to eat solids, then it's even easier because then there are other things that the baby can get. And once you're back from work, that is the time you would breastfeed again. And remember, you can always then at nighttime breastfeed your baby, and then also over the weekends or the days that you're off. Those are the times you would definitely always keep on breastfeeding. Do not give your baby a bottle at that time when you're there. It would be best to continue to breastfeed your baby, because then the baby is getting, the breast milk from you, and you have that connection. And it's also important for mommy to be able to cuddle the baby. It's so stressful leaving your baby, and the times that you have with your baby, it's really nice to be able to cuddle and feed your baby. So I hope that makes sense, of going back to work and how it's doable. If you have questions, specific questions, definitely have a look who is the person in your area, who is the breastfeeding consultant or the lactation consultant, and contact that person, because it's a very important talk to have and a very important thing to think about your situation. It is doable. You can breastfeed your baby and go back to work. Thank you very much.